Welcome to the Deal Calendar. I'm Mary Kathleen Flynn, and this is our chance to take a look at some of the stories that we're covering in the Deal's newsroom. With me is Matt Miller, senior writer at the Deal, and Matt's written a story that's the cover story for the August 11th issue of the Deal. We'll be talking about it in a moment, and it's all about the upheaval going on in the student loan industry. But before we get to Matt, I want to talk just a moment about some upcoming dates. On August 14th, the largest mining company in the world, BHP, faces a deadline in its play for Rio Tinto. A decision is due from the Australian Competition Consumer Commission. Also on the 14th, in a different deal, there's the HSR expiration on the bid for Intervoice from Convergys, and that's in the call center operator world. Now let's get to student loans. You know, Matt, we hear so much about the mortgage crisis, but we haven't heard so much about student loans. Why do you think that is?
Well, for those of us with college-age kids, I think the answer may be that we're in such a state of shock or denial that we don't know what's going on. But more seriously, I think the answer is that it's a very, very complicated industry. It's an odd hybrid between the government and the private sector, has many layers, and very few people are aware of its intricacies.
Well, give us a feel for what that complicated structure is.
Yeah, maybe 40 years ago, the government set up a system where it did guarantee some student loans, but it allowed private sector to act as intermediaries. More recently, as tuition has been skyrocketing, the non-guaranteed, purely private loans have kicked in. And so you have layers of lending out there.
Has that had any effect on deal making in the sector?
Yeah, absolutely. Beginning of, say, the late 90s through maybe early last year, you had consolidation amongst some of the players, most notably the giant in the field, which is commonly called Sallie Mae, now known as SLM, as well as a company called Nelnet. Both of them bought upwards of a dozen different companies in an attempt to try and get their hands on the various aspects of this industry.
How are some of the macroeconomic issues that have been affecting the mortgage crisis, how are they playing out in the student loan world?
Well, most notably securitization and the collapse of that market earlier this year, last year. The student lending industry is very, very dependent on securitization. It makes sense. You need to keep getting money in to originate more loans. When the securitization market collapsed, student loans were impacted as well.
You mentioned that you've got college-age kids. I know you've got your second son, Zach, going off to Berklee School of Music. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you've just gone through this process from a personal point of view. Did you learn anything or did anything surprise you in that process?
Yeah, absolutely. As I was researching and reporting this story, I discovered that consolidation of student loans, which is a huge, huge part of this industry, maybe upwards of $150 billion, in a very, very weird part of the law, Congress said you could only consolidate once. Now, whoever heard of only being allowed to refinance your home once? What that meant was that there was a huge push by these private companies to get in on that consolidation market, marketing very, very aggressive tactics to get the students and their parents to consolidate.
Do you think, looking ahead, do you think that it's going to get easier or harder to get a student loan?
Well, the government bailout, which came into effect recently, twofold. It allows the government to act as a secondary market. It also allows the government to be the lender of last resort. Those programs are only good for 1 year. That means next summer they're due to expire. Those people in the industry don't believe that everything will be righted by that time, and that the industry faces much longer term problems that need to be addressed.
Okay, well, I'm one person who's hoping that they're going to solve all that. I've got a 5.5-year-old daughter, Samantha. I sure hope they figure it out by then. All right, thank you so much, Matt Miller, senior writer from The Deal, and his story on student loans is in the August 11th issue of The Deal News Weekly. I'm Mary Kathleen Flynn. Thanks for watching The Deal Calendar. We'll see you next week.